we would leave the house
to fight. And so we just get out of the house so we can yell and swear or whatever we needed to do without the kids having to hear it and just walk.
I guess none of the neighbors heard us arguing, right? Because they would say to us, oh, you guys are so cute. Little do they know, right, that we are discussing whether or not we're going to stay together.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplessynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 20 years.
Every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. So we've created not only an avenue we can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Heidi and Chris, thank you so much for being on our podcast today, guys.
Thank you. It's
yeah,
awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and you guys are coming to us from Utah.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were talking with Heidi offline, the fact that we have a place in Colorado, which is pretty close to the Utah border.
Right.
Yeah. So before we get into your story, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you? What do you do for a living? And how long have you been together?
Sure. Do you want me to go first? All right. So I'm Chris. I'm 51 years old, and Heidi and I have been married for almost 30 years. Professionally, I'm what's called an instructional designer, which basically means that I create training materials, and my specialty happens to be using art to explain difficult concepts. That's what I do.
Cool.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
He's awesome. He's very talented. And I am Heidi. I am 48. And we are actually, our engagement anniversary is November 7th. So we're coming up on celebrating 30 years from our engagement. And then our wedding anniversary is March 20th. So that will be our 30 year. And right now I am a podcaster, and I also make hot chocolate bombs. So that keeps me busy.
Sounds decadent.
Yeah, really good.
Big plans for the anniversary?
So I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull it off, but we're trying to book a cruise that we want to do a riverboat cruise.
Oh.
And the one we've picked out starts in Amsterdam and ends in Budapest. So it goes through the Rhine River and onto the Danube River. And so I don't know if we're gonna pull that off next year, but we're gonna try.
That sounds fabulous.
Those are like Viking cruises or something?
Yeah. That's one of the companies that does it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome. I had just graduated high school and was heading to Southern Utah, about 3 hours away, to go to college. And I had been working at Wendy's fast food restaurant since I was 16. And so it was natural when I moved to another city to find the closest Wendy's and start working there. So I started working at Wendy's.
Yep. And I was in my junior year of college, no, my sophomore year of college, my second year of college. And my roommate was like a night manager at this Wendy's that we're talking about. And so I got a job working there as well, the very same time that Heidi did. And so I met Heidi her second day there.
Yeah, my first day at Wendy's, I actually worked with his roommate, the manager, and he was awesome and fun guy. And he was several years older than me, but I just really enjoyed like being in the kind of more that college life and being with older people and not that high school little kid scene anymore. And so, and even his roommate, the manager, gave me a ride home on my first day of work because I brought a bicycle to ride and it started pouring rain. So he gave me a ride home.
Right. And for some reason, we need the record to show that he did not tell me he had given anybody a ride home when he got home. So the next day was Heidi's second day, and we just happened to work together. And she was telling me, that she worked the day before and that this guy had given her a ride home, and I said, I used this total line on her. I said, that's my roommate. And he didn't tell me that he took a beautiful girl home last night. That would have been nice to know. And
he got me.
Yeah.
He got me right there.
So the
He was
line,
so
the line
smooth.
worked. None of them have worked since, but that one,
It did the
that
trick. One and
worked.
done.
Yeah, it did. So,
One and done. Yeah.
so we
It's all I
started
need.
dating.
Kind of. We really just worked together.
That's true. We hung out. Right. What kids today normally do, that's what we did. We did go on a few dates, but not very many.
Our first date was like a Halloween dance, and we met in September, the end of September, and then a month later, and we
Hung out.
worked together,
Yeah.
and hung out several every day almost for that month. Went on a Halloween dance, and a week later, November 7th, he proposed to me.
Yeah. Then we got engaged and we got married in March. So
Oh,
just a few months
wow.
after that.
Yeah,
it
so
was
met,
quick.
engaged, and married all within about 5-6 months.
And your ages at the time again were what?
Yeah, I was 18.
I was 21.
21. Wow.
What was your first impression of each other?
Well, it was like I said, I thought she was beautiful. She was beautiful.
That's sweet. It's funny because we joke about that now because we didn't have that whole anxiety and first impression and put on the hair, makeup, and nice clothes. We were at fast food wearing a uniform with a visor, so my 80s hairstyle was really smashed down flat underneath this visor, and my awesome blue eyeshadow was probably streaked from, sweating and working. And then I was wearing that great polyester green and blue uniform. So,
Right.
it was awesome. So he just had pretty much my smile to go off of, I guess. But no, so it was awesome. Our first impression really wasn't about looks at all. It was about comfort. And that was something that always stayed with us. We would always say, I just feel so comfortable around you. I feel like I could tell you anything. I feel like I've known you forever. And we didn't have any of that awkward first time meeting,
Right.
anything. It was really
Right. We
comfortable.
really didn't.
And how did you know this was your person, and how long did that take?
So it didn't, obviously, we just told you it didn't take very long. We're both religious. And so there was a lot of prayer involved for both of us personally, and kind of receiving a confirmation, right, from what we believe is the Holy Spirit, that this would be the right person to marry for both of us.
Because the funny thing was, at the time when we met, another reason why it was so comfortable is we were both dating other people as well. I had
Like serious
yeah,
dating
like I
other
had a
people.
high school sweetheart that I was pretty much engaged to when I left to college, with plans that when I came back for Christmas break, we'd make it official with the ring and the date and all that. But I was just going to go to college for the first semester, be away from him for a little while, and then we, kind of get back together at Christmas. And so I had that plan going into it. And then he also had a girlfriend that lived 3 hours away as well, that he was doing a long distance relationship with as well. So we were not planning or looking for anyone, which another reason why I think it all came so easily is because we could just be best friends with each other and talk and hang out. And it was just really comfortable and really fun, and not that pressure of like any long-term thing. We got to
Right.
just
So would you say it's
enjoy.
fair to say like no expectations?
Yeah, there was no expectations. And then after about 2 weeks of hanging out all the time, I remember writing my boyfriend about him, like, oh, there's this really great guy from work that I just love hanging out with. He's so cool. He's so fun. I have such a good time with him. So then a couple weeks later, when I called my boyfriend and told him I was engaged to this really great guy from work, he wasn't super surprised, because I guess I'd written about him a lot in letters leading up to that day. So he's like, wait, it's that guy from work, isn't it? I just know it. You've been writing about him a lot in your letters. So yeah, I guess I was smitten right from the start.
Did
Yeah,
you
me
guys
too.
both have the same religious background or an
Yes.
upbringing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So that helped a lot too.
Yeah.
Because we
To
had
find
that in
common
common.
bond.
Yes, we had that in common, and we were both very strong in our religion. And so that helped a lot to have kind of goals of what we wanted to accomplish that way as well.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Heidi, why did you want to go away for a year? You said you wanted to go away from him, from your ex-boyfriend.
Oh, yeah, from my boyfriend. I just wanted to, well, my dad had died when I was 16, and I moved out soon after that. So I'd already lived on my own my senior year in high school. And then I got accepted to college 3 hours away. And my boyfriend was trying to make some big decisions in his life. Like, again, are we going to get married? Is he going to go serve a mission for our church? Is he going to go to college? What is he going to do? And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go to college. I'm accepted there. You figure out your path and what you want to do. We'll talk again in 3 months at Christmas, kind of a thing. And gave him just that space to figure out what he wanted. I didn't realize it was the space that I needed as well, to know that that probably wasn't the best path for me. Great guy. I was with him for 5 years. I'd known him since I was 13 until I was 18. So he was wonderful and supportive and a great person, but he just wasn't really my person anymore. I was kind of in a different stage of life at that point. He was still kind of not sure what he was going to do. And when I met Chris and his goals and his values and the things he had done in his life and what he'd accomplished already, I just felt like this was where I was supposed to go now.
What was the feedback from both your families about getting engaged so quickly, I guess?
Yeah. So, this is 30 years ago. So culturally, I think things were a little different then. For the most part, people did wait a little bit longer than we did to get married even 30 years ago. But in the culture of the religion that we belong to, that's not a huge surprise. So Heidi's mom was elated.
What's
she was
funny is they
happy.
hadn't met yet,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
So we live 3 hours away.
Yeah,
And so she, as soon as I called her, I'm like, that guy Chris I've been writing you about? Well, he just proposed to me. And she's like, I'll be there tomorrow. And she drove down and met him and stayed the weekend and just fell in love with him too. In fact, she even said that. She's like, I can see exactly why you fell in love with him. She's like, I'm in love with him too. I'm so glad he's going to be part of our family. And so she was super supportive and excited to embrace him. His mom as well. He had to call her and tell her. And I didn't get to meet them until Thanksgiving, a couple weeks after we were engaged. We got to go home,
right,
and meet all of our families and siblings
who were all excited and supportive. And
we were the first wedding in both of our families. We're both the oldest. And so I had younger siblings, he had younger siblings, and they were all just super excited to invite a new family member in and celebrate with us. So it was very positive. Everybody was really happy.
We just did a podcast on the importance of community within a marriage. And, when we do some research, arranged marriages tend to last a lot longer than love marriages. And it is because the community and the expectations there, the moral structure, like this is how you behave within a relationship and within our family and within our culture. And spirituality is a really big piece of that. So having those two things in place, that is a really big deal. That a lot of people that don't have that, when things get tough, they do start to unravel. So that makes a lot of sense, that even though the timing seems like kind of quick, you guys are on the same page, your families are on the same page, you're kind of wrapped around, in this journey and have the similar expectations.
yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
I totally agree with that.
So I spent a couple of years in the Netherlands, and there's a saying in the Dutch language that goes like this. Is that they say twee geloven op één kussen slaapt de duivel daartussen, which translated says, when two religions share the same pillow, the devil sleeps in between.
Oh, that's pretty powerful.
Pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it is one of the number one reasons couples that are in long-term relationships break up.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because they don't have a common spiritual life connection, vision. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see that. I definitely think I would definitely give a lot of credit to our religion of why we've been able to sustain 30 years of marriage. I think a lot of it are those values and those things we learn in that community we're in of like-minded people that support us and encourage us along the way. It really does save your marriage. It's really a good thing.
So, Chris, how did you ask her to marry you?
Yeah. What was the engagement story?
It's so
So,
boring.
Yeah, it's kind of boring actually. We went to we went to a place that's kind of significant in our religion. We drove an hour away to this place. It's called a temple, and we went there. And it's kind of a place to reflect and pray and stuff like that. And so that's what I did. Heidi was with me. We weren't together the whole time. Like, we had time that we could kind of go off and pray and meditate and stuff like that ourselves. And so when we got back together, met up a little bit later at this same outside,
yeah.
the same place, then I just proposed to her.
I know. Super excited.
Did you have a ring? Did you get down on a knee?
So I didn't have a ring. I don't remember getting down
Yeah,
on one
you
knee.
did.
Did I? Okay.
You did. Of course you did. You got to do that.
I
part.
figured I did, but I wasn't sure. It's been a
Yeah.
while, but
Yeah.
I didn't have a ring. We picked those out later.
At Thanksgiving when we went
yeah,
home.
that's
we went to
right.
the mall and picked those out.
That was like the first thing I ever bought on credit in my whole life. And
Your Wendy's salary didn't.
yeah,
Yes.
no, yeah,
That
we
was
didn't really
hard.
save a whole lot at Wendy's.
No, there wasn't a lot of savings, so we actually bought our rings on credit.
Yeah, so we bought our rings on
not
credit.
A good idea. but-
paid them off pretty quickly,
Yeah.
though. But so we bought those later. But yeah, I did get down on one knee and asked her to marry me. She said yes, and that's I think the next day or that evening is when we had to make phone calls home
Tell everybody.
to my parents and to her parents. And
Our boyfriend, your girlfriend.
right,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
yeah,
So is March 20th? Is that like spring break? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, it was spring
That's
break.
Exactly it.
Ah.
it happens to be the first day of spring, which
First
is kind
day
of
of
cool.
spring,
But
yeah.
it was
Mhm.
during spring break. And funny story, my roommate
The manager.
that we were talking about before, shortly after this actually got engaged as well, and they got married the day before we did. So we were in their wedding party on the 19th, and they were in our wedding party on the 20th, and we've been friends this whole time,
We had a couple day honeymoon and back to work.
and
and
back
school.
to work and school.
It was really boring too.
Did you guys get a 2-for-1 at the reception hall? or-
Right. we
Right,
should have.
we
I-
should have. No, we didn't. That would have been smart.
So Heidi, were you surprised him proposing to you?
Not at all. I knew going there, doing that drive to our temple and praying and meditating about it. I just knew. I'm like, this is the best thing for my life. And if he doesn't propose to me, I'm going to propose to him because I want this guy in my life. So no, I was not surprised. I mean, I guess at that very moment, it was like, wait, this is how you're doing it.
Right.
But
Did
it
you
was fine.
did you each have a clear vision of what you were looking for in a partner?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I
I
really thought I'd found it already. And so when I did meet him, it was crazy. This whole like, wow, I could have this. Like, I don't know. There was this part of me that's like, not that I was settling by any means before. I think it was just the maturity and the drive and the goals and just his faith and just where he was at in life was just so good. It was all just like all wrapped up in this really great package that I was like, this is wow, I could have this, like he'd be interested in me. Like, this is great. I'm lucky. So that's kind of more what it did to me, was more like, wow, I could have somebody like this.
Right.
So it was cool.
Right. Yeah.
So you go back to school together?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we should tell you, right after Thanksgiving, we went back and finished that semester of school, went home for Christmas break, and went back, in January to do another semester before spring break when we'd get married. And my mom said, I can either help pay for school or pay for a wedding, can't do both. And so I had to drop out of school that winter semester in January and move back home 3 hours away from him to plan the wedding and work back at Wendy's, back at home, and use all the money I could make to pay for our wedding. And so
Back
we were
to a
actually
longer-
separated.
Yeah, back to a long distance relationship
Yep.
again.
Back to a
it
long distance
was.
relationship
It
again.
was, and this was 30 years ago. So
No
there's
internet, no cell phones.
no cell phones. Long distance was very expensive, and so
To
we
do a phone
wrote
call.
letters for that
Every
time
day.
that we still have.
We wrote a letter every day because it got there the next day. So it was really cool. If I had a question or anything, it's like, well, he'll answer it the next day, So we wrote letters every single day for those 3 months until we got married. We saw each other, I think, twice
Yeah, a few times.
in those 3
I
months.
think you drove down to see me, and I drove up to see you a
Yeah,
couple times.
because we neither one had cars either. So that made it tricky to drive 3 hours to visit each other on a weekend or something. Plus, no place to stay at that point. We didn't live together. Our religion, doesn't
Yeah.
do that. And so we were separated and it was fine. So we just
In what
waited.
way did that enhance your relationship, and how is that difficult for your relationship?
So it was really hard, I think, to not be around her and stuff like that. At the same time, you have to think, I think, harder when you're writing and deeper and stuff when you're trying to express something. So those letters are little treasures, right? That we have from what we're feeling, what we were experiencing, and if we were together, none of that would have been recorded. Someday some archaeologist is going to find that box, and it'll have a lot more meaning than if we were together. It also allowed us, I think, to focus on what we needed to focus on. I was in school and Heidi was at home and working, and I was working too, but I didn't have to work as much. So, it helped us get through that.
Yeah, it's funny because I would almost recommend it sometimes. I think people should have some time apart when they're engaged so they can dig a little deeper and talk a little deeper. And our letters, like you said, they were really special letters, expressing our feelings and thoughts about each other and about the situations we were in and our day-to-day things we were dealing with. I was dealing with planning a wedding, and he's at work and trying to go to school. And so he's worried about homework and providing and getting us an apartment and, just different things. And so it was actually kind of cool that we were apart. Like, I don't know. I think I'd recommend
For us, I think it worked out.
It was
well.
great. It worked out for us.
I don't know if everybody could do that, but
Yeah. It was a good way to strengthen our relationship, actually.
It's very interesting because I think 3 episodes ago, we did one about love letters and the importance of writing love letters in a relationship. And we shared some of our love letters in the beginning of our relationship. And we weren't separated by 3 hours or anything like that, but we still wrote letters to each other, and how it's very important to be able to read those and kind of see how far you've come and to kind of reminisce about those feelings again and reconnect in that way.
Yeah. I
So
love
that's
that.
really great. You guys have that experience.
Yeah.
yeah.
We speak from a different part of us when we write. And so it's
Definitely.
sort of like, where you were on September 11th, 2001. It's
Right.
just in your brain in a different way. And, when you're sitting there, you feel so much more emotion because our physical body, our emotional body is the same place. Right. And if
Right.
you would have that same conversation on the telephone, you wouldn't remember most of it. And
No.
it wouldn't be at that depth. So I agree that, it's really special to write letters. And, our world is so busy. We don't have enough time for self-reflection.
Right. I think I would add to that,
Mhm.
that physically writing the letters, right? Like if you send somebody a text or an
Yeah.
email, that's still not the same thing,
Right.
right? There's something about
we mentioned that too. If you type out a letter, because I had a letter that was typed and then I had a letter that was written, and you could see the energy, the motion that I had at the time when I wrote it versus the typed one, where you can't really sense that. So you're absolutely right. We agree. Yeah. And I feel for this newer generation where they just send like Snapchats to each other, and
Yeah, they're not even talking on
it's
the
not
phone.
the same thing. They don't even
Right?
have
They don't even
mix-
talk on the phone. Exactly.
Yeah, they don't have
Well, it-
mixtapes either.
That's right. We had mixtapes too. That was the best. Well, and even with talking on the phone, when we would be able to talk on the phone, you're paying by the minute, which is half of our pay that we'd make in an hour. It was just
Right,
like,
yeah, it was
oh.
expensive.
And so it was really quick. It was like really quick, gotta tell you this, and hurry and hang up the phone. So you wouldn't just sit there gushing it out and going on and expressing your feelings in a phone call back then. We just did not,
Yeah.
just could not afford.
Yeah, we
literally.
did not go through the stage of no, you hang up. No, you hang up.
It's
Because we're
okay,
like,
hang
no,
up.
we got to get off the
Yeah,
phone.
no.
This is costing us too much money.
Yeah, that's right.
It seems so much more intentional, and like today things sort of are taken for granted because they're so immediate, but you have to delay that gratification, and you have to tolerate uncertainty and tolerate self-soothing and things like that, because you have to go through those things that are more difficult. And I do think it makes a resilience and a bond that's much stronger than I can just walk away.
Yeah. I can feel that we had a good foundation doing
Mhm.
that. And it's really carried us for the past 30 years. It really has.
Yeah, it has. And Heidi's wonderful. I'm so grateful that we married, that I found her, right? But as life does, life comes at you. And I think without that foundation, things would have been a little different over
Yeah.
the last 30 years.
Would
So
have been
we're
easy
very
to-
grateful for that.
Easy to quit, huh?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like the Disney story, you get married and happily ever after, right?
Yeah, it is not. It's
It
not.
wasn't even like that for a couple weeks.
No, it
feels
wasn't even like that
It
for a couple
was-
weeks
It
like
was a
that.
hard reality hit all of a
It
sudden.
was just because that's just the way life is, right?
Yeah.
And life comes at you, and decisions, and
Pregnancy, right?
yeah,
away.
we got pregnant pretty quickly, and our oldest son was born.
Yeah.
Are you
Um,
back in the college town now?
Yeah. We're back in the college.
Yeah, back in the
town,
college town. So
Both
that's
going
where our
to
son was
school,
born.
Both going to
Um,
school, both working. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
we had a baby within a year, our first year. Like our anniversary is March. He was born in April. So
the following year.
yeah, that next. Yeah,
How
one
was
year
that for you
anniversary.
guys?
So it was tough. I think it was a lot harder on Heidi, right? Because I was working and going to school. So my time was pretty much full. And that meant that Heidi had to be by herself a lot, taking care of our son, which was hard on her. It was tough.
Luckily, by then we got a car, but he took the car. He took the car to go to school and go to work. And so he'd leave first thing in the morning, go to school classes all day, and work till midnight, 1 a.m, come home, do homework. And I'm there all day, every night with this newborn. I didn't go back to work right away or any way to, I had to take care of him. So it got to be those long days and little resentment and hard depression, and things that it got hard to do that. But it was totally worth it. I mean, he's a beautiful boy. It was easy and it was wonderful. So everything has its good and bad, but it definitely was.
And the flip side of that, I guess, is when you look down the road, right? We're fairly young grandparents now. We have 4 grandchildren. And so we still have some pretty good energy, to do stuff with them. And it's wonderful.
So, during that time, obviously you were very separated.
Yeah,
Right.
very, again.
And kind of living parallel lives at that time, right? You're doing your thing, you're doing yours, and your support system was far away at
Right.
that point.
Right.
Which
And-
actually was a good thing.
It was
I
a-
think in
it
the
was a
end,
good
it was
thing.
a good thing for us.
So
Because
really-
we had to depend on each other. There wasn't anybody else there. So we had to work it out, right? We couldn't just,
go to mom's house.
go to mom's house if we were angry at each other or upset about something.
There was even
There
a
was
point
no
when
place to go.
my mom said, she's like, just come home, just bring the baby and just come home. He
Mm.
obviously is too busy for you. He doesn't, care. So he won't even notice you're gone, kind of a thing. And I was I was like, wow.
Which I don't
no.
know if her mom was trying to use like reverse psychology or something. I don't know. I hope that's what she was doing.
Yeah,
but
because it worked that way. I was like, no way. Like he's working and going to school. We have this goal. Like he has a couple years left and we're in this together. And I'm not gonna just leave, So it definitely kind of gave me that more drive of like, I gotta make the best out of this and make this a good situation for all
Right.
of it and make him glad when he does come home. And it kind of started that goal for me at that moment of like, you know what, if he's only gonna be home for a little while or only gonna be home for dinner or whatever, I want to make it so he's glad he came and not like, wow, that was a mistake to come home and my wife's crazy. And so after that, I'd get dressed and I'd shower and I'd make dinner and I'd be pleasant. And it really shifted my thinking from there on. And I did that.
I
the
think
rest of
that's
our
a really
marriage.
important thing that I think most women need to hear, and men as well, is that, when you have a baby, you also have a loss, right?
Absolutely.
And then especially the hormonal piece of it. And you do have to go through that to become the parent and the adult, because you're not the kid anymore and you're not carefree anymore. And I think we don't give ourselves enough permission to do that. Like we feel bad because of course we love our babies, but at the same time we've lost something. And to step into that role, and the process of childbirth is painful. So whenever we experience pain, we also feel shame. It's just the natural mechanism in us. And then we feel bad. Why do we feel shame? We have this baby, but I just went through, what I just went through. And, that's really great to hear that reality of that even though you're in love, you're committed, you want this. It's hard. It's really hard.
yeah,
Very.
yeah, I agree.
Would you say that was probably the most challenging point in your marriage?
Oh no.
Oh no, it got
No.
so much.
It
No,
got
no.
so much.
That was the first
No.
year. That's the first year.
No. No. In 30 years of time, we've been through a lot of stuff.
It's been a couple of things.
We've been through a lot of stuff. Heidi was just kind of listing some of those things the other day.
I really was. I was just writing.
Just stuff, just looking back, right? Which is kind of fun because then you see how far you've come, right? But no, we've had conversations about, are we going to stay together? Are we not? We've had bouts of on both sides of us having some being selfish about things and that causing problems. Our 30 years of marriage has not been problem free. That's for sure. It definitely has not.
Yeah, we don't think that any relationship is problem free.
Okay, good.
Right. It's really about how couples react to it.
Right.
Every couple is destined to fight and argue and have conflict. The ones that survive are the ones that learn how to make repair attempts.
Yep.
And how to learn from those challenging points.
Absolutely.
Right.
When we first
Absolutely.
get together, we sort of travel parallel. And when one turns, we turn. But then when we're married, it turns into this.
Crossing
Like
each other.
how far out do we get before it pulls us back or breaks, right?
Right.
And that's a really long process, like a 20-year process.
Yes.
To really forge, this deep bond, because then you go through the big changes of empty nesting and
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
I would
Right.
definitely say our 20th year was our worst, was our hardest. Yeah, I totally agree with that. 20 to 25 was
Do you guys want to talk about that?
hardest. It was just like he said, it was a lot of selfish. Like you said, you just pull apart. You kind of start living this other life away from your spouse. You're kind of into selfish things, and whether it's addictions or other relationships or, some really not good things to be involved in when you're a married couple. And
Some people call it like the roommate
yeah,
kind of
We call it
stage.
parallel lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you're
sharing
fine.
a house, but
You're not fighting. You don't hate each other. You just,
Mhm.
you have dinner together and then go your
there's
separate
no
ways.
intimacy, no closeness there, right? Real
Right.
intimacy with each other and that
Just
yeah, it
friends.
was rough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just friends.
to repair that, one of the things that we did was our kids were still around living at home, when that all went down. So we would leave the house. They were older, but we could leave them alone at home. But so we'd leave the house and we'd walk around our neighborhood, hold hands and stuff. And,
To fight.
and that's right. That's right. Right. We would, and we'd have these discussions about, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay together? Is this the point where we split things up and
We
get
tried-
a divorce?
We
And
tried driving, and just with the heated, you just get a little too intense driving. And so we thought, you know what, we need to just walk. And so we just get out of the house so we can yell and swear or whatever we needed to do without the kids having to hear it, and just walk. And we just would walk. And then the next night, we got to walk again. And after so many weeks of walking, and you're getting that rhythm, and you end up like getting closer. It was the most
you start talking
amazing.
things out and
Just talk it out and just be real and raw and honest, and just cry and yell and get it out. And then it was like, I kind of still like you, I think.
I guess none of the neighbors heard us like
Yelling.
arguing, right? Because they would say to us, "Oh, you guys are so cute, going out for a walk every night,
We're so
and
jealous.
the husband would say, "Dude, you're killing me. My wife wants to go out and walk all the time like you do, and she's so jealous and stuff." Little do they know, right? That
was the worst time.
that we are discussing whether or not we're going to stay together.
Yeah.
And if they knew that, they'd be like, "Okay,
Maybe we don't.
things are not always as they appear," right?
Yes.
You see somebody else and you're jealous of their relationship or whatever. And you know what? If they married a human being, then
They're having
it's not
problems.
perfect.
Yeah, they're
right?
having problems too.
Movies lie to us.
That's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, is that we've been working with couples for 20 years, and behind closed doors, couples ask us, is what we're going through normal? And we know that what they're going through is normal, that every couple gets into these phases in their relationship where they're very distant and they're living these parallel lives, and barely even friends. They're great co-parents. They run a household wonderfully, right? But you can't judge a book by its cover, because like inside they're not connected, and the intimacy suffers, and that connection becomes much more distant. And we wanted to feature couples that look great on the outside, but they can talk about how normal this is, and the fact that you both really pushed through it. I mean, I think that's really important to highlight, because most couples just say, it's easier just to get divorced.
Yeah, they do. I like the word that you use there, push, because it's
Literally was.
it's work,
Mhm.
right? It's work. You have to work at it. You have to be able to be willing to set your own self aside, I
Yes.
guess, and really dig in and work.
I think that was the benefit for us at the time. I think it's easier when people can play victim, when one of the spouses can be like, "Oh, they did this to me. My spouse did this to me. My spouse," we never did that. We just couldn't, because we each had our own thing that we were involved in and doing outside the marriage that was hurting our spouse, but hurting us more than anything. And so it was really easy to not blame him for my choices. I did what I did because I did it, not because of anything he did. And so I think that was a big change in our relationship, was owning our own choices and owning our own things that we were involved in, and working on ourselves, and never blaming the spouse or trying to fix them. If he worked on himself and got to a better place, fine. If not, I was doing it anyway. We just happened to be side by side and worked on our 12 steps and worked on with our therapists, and we kind of got each other through it without getting in each other's space.
Right.
And it was actually beautiful
Right.
and helpful.
So one thing, I mean, there have been 5, 6, maybe 7 times in the last 30 years that we needed help. We did not do all that on our own. We went to marriage therapy, counseling and got help. And it made a huge difference,
Highly
right?
recommend it.
I would recommend it. Do your homework and pick somebody that works with you. And if it doesn't work, then go find somebody else. We did have a couple of therapists over the period that did not work for us. And we just, you know what, this is not working. We found somebody else. But for the most part, that was very helpful and did us a lot of good. So, and for some reason, I think guys are more the ones that are a little bit hesitant to do that, right? Because they have this, I don't know what it is, right? They have this like,
Guys don't want to talk about feelings.
they don't want to talk about feeling that. Okay, that's hard in of itself, but they also feel like, I'm going to be ganged up on because in our culture, it's usually the guys, whatever their problem is usually the one that gets highlighted, right? Which isn't always the case. It's not fair.
But that's how it comes down.
And so
well, to be fair, 80 to 90% of marriage therapists are female. And so already right off the bat, men are kind of outnumbered.
Right.
Okay,
I think
true.
we went to both men and women.
Yeah, we picked both.
I found them both to be helpful. And I also found that a really good therapist is not, I mean, they're going to call you out on your stuff because that's what they're supposed to do, right? But they also call out, if they're really good, they're going to call out the other partner on their stuff too, right? And so you go there and find out, oh, okay, this isn't all my fault. I can see where it is, right? But I would, if I were to give a piece of advice for guys who might be listening to this, and that is, don't be afraid to go to therapy, to ask for help. And it is kind of hard to talk about your feelings, but a good therapist will make it so that you can take the plunge and do that, and it's not a horrible, scary thing.
Absolutely.
It'll help you out a lot. You'll come out and be like, oh, okay. It makes a big difference.
Looking back, are you guys able to see how you got to a place where you got too much distance between you? And what was the wake-up calls along the way that drove you back towards each other?
You can talk about the distance. I'll tell the wake-up call.
Actually, I kind of like to do it the other way around,
okay.
but
Okay. Do you want me to tell what the wake-up call was? I don't. I had one. Maybe you didn't have the same one.
No, go ahead then. Go ahead.
I remember when things got to the point that I was considering not being in our marriage anymore. And the wake-up call to me was imagining telling our teenage daughter, she was like 16, 17 at the time. And I was thinking, okay, so this is how I'm going to tell her, and then I was imagining her reaction and how mad she'd be at me, and I thought, wait a minute. And it kind of woke me up. I was like, wait, I'm kind of the one causing the problem here. Like, I'm not a victim. I'm not someone that can just get away with doing this behavior any longer. Like, I need to recommit to my marriage and see this through. And I started imagining this daughter, graduating high school and getting married and having children, and I'd be a visitor, and that wasn't what our dream was years before when we were deciding to get married so quick. Our dream was all the way to the end, not visit my grandkids on their birthday, or not have them be able to come over to our house on Sunday for dinner. And so I'm imagining this conversation with this daughter, and that was the big thing. It wasn't necessarily our relationship or, oh, I owe it to him, or there wasn't that connection at that point. It was more thinking outside myself and imagining my kids that snapped me out of it. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. That's what happened in my mind. And it was that day when I went, wow, maybe I need to rethink this path. Maybe I need to recommit to my marriage and see what I can do to keep this going. And I'm so grateful I did.
Yeah, thanks. So mine almost happened by accident, actually. So I have to thank the Lord for it, right? That this is the way it happened for me. For a lot of our marriage, I was a workaholic, right? Heidi came from a family that didn't have a lot of money. And so she has issues, or had, she's much better now, but had issues with money, meaning like, as you pay bills and you see the bank account going down a little bit more and a little bit more, that would freak her completely out. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm Mr. Fix It guy being like, you know what, I could fix this. I'll just go make more money. And so I worked a lot.
So we worked a couple of jobs.
Yeah, I worked a couple of jobs. And then even when I had one job, I just went way more than I needed to. And we did get some financial rewards from that. Right. But at the same time, right, I'm neglecting her, neglecting our family. I was traveling a lot.
We say he was married to his job.
I was married to my job, and that's one of the things that made it hard. Right. And so I was working for this company, and the company wasn't performing very well. And I was a little worried about what was going to happen. And I ended up getting a new job. Now, you know what it's like when you start a new job, right? When you're the new guy, there's not a lot of expectation of putting extra stuff on you, right? And so all of a sudden I'm the new guy, and I go to work at 8 and I come home to work at 5, and I do that for like a week, and I'm like, I kind of like this. I like this a lot. And at the same time, Heidi and I are going out for walks more and more and holding hands and stuff. And at one point I kind of turned to her and I'm like, have you been here this whole time?
I just cried.
Yeah, me too. Have you always been here? And of course she's like, finally, you stupid person, you're finally, you're finally noticing, right, what was going on. And it took me that to realize, wow, no amount of money, even though I was trying to fix something for her, like in the beginning, right? It was making things worse. And
it was 23 years of being put second.
Right. And so since then, I go to work at 8, I get done at 5. And if something doesn't get done, oh, well,
And
every once in a while, there's something that might come up, but I'm really, really, really careful with my time that, is it really an emergency? Because if it's not, yeah, I'll let it wait. If it really is, okay, then, this once, then I'll do it, and I'll talk to her about it and take care of what it needs to be taken care of. Right. But
and it's really cool because, like you said, we are empty nesters. We haven't had kids at home for a couple of years now. And so even when he's done at 5, then we can turn on the music and we dance.
Yeah.
We dance to a song while dinner finishes cooking every day. And this is the vision I saw several years ago, just like making it through and getting to this point where it's just us now. And we can do what we want, and we can travel, and we can have the kids over on Sunday dinner and be there when the grad kids come over and play. We're together. We can both play with them. And it's just that dream that I had 30 years ago, and we're living it now. I'm very grateful.
Those are some very powerful wake-up calls, for both of you. And
right.
You could really hear just how that, just the imagery itself, for us is very powerful. It's really important, I think, to highlight, what the road to hell is paved with.
It's good intention.
Right. That's with good intentions.
That's right.
And we've never met a couple that wasn't in love with each other on their wedding day. And just over time, what happens is that, starting out with good intentions, it usually ends up with some really severe negative consequences.
Right. You really have to watch and be careful.
And that's an easy guy trap, right? Because your work doesn't reject you, it rewards you. And you come home and you have the resistance. And, I just did this talk for women about balance. And I said, when you're between puberty and becoming a mother, you are in the phase of pick me. And then when you become a mother, it's not about me. And then when you go into becoming the queen, it's all about me, right? And that all about me, not in the selfish way, but like, I need to speak my truth. I need to not tolerate things I was tolerating. And and it really is a developmental discovery thing. And we've been on a very similar journey.
Mhm.
And it's that it's growing into that next phase that is, I call it like turning into the Hulk. Sometimes you're like morphing, like, but it does require that. I just have this image of you guys putting your shoes on and both being like,
We're going for a
going
walk.
to have that
Going to walk.
conversation we didn't know we needed to have.
That's
Right.
exactly it.
Right.
And
You
I
know,
also
for-
want to,
Yeah.
sorry.
I was
I
just
just-
saying, and for men, Chris,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing the same kind of theme. It's like men, they have to redefine what being a provider and a protector is, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about bringing home a paycheck, but being a provider is also connecting with your spouse and investing in your family and investing in yourself personally, right? Your health and time management and balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. There's no company out there that won't take every minute you're willing to give. And at some point you have to realize that I'm paid X amount of dollars. And if I do more effort than that, the company is actually stealing from me and from my family. And part of being a provider is to protect against that. And I'm not saying that companies are bad or anything like that. They exist of people, and that's just the reality of life. And so you just have to be careful of what you're going to allow and to keep boundaries as best you can, and to really look at and prioritize what is the most important at this moment right now, and be willing to make the tough choice.
And I just wanted to say as well that I know people listening have their own path, and we did too. And if divorce is the right thing for someone else, I'm not judging that by any means. It wasn't the right path for me and for us. But people have to do what they have to do that's best for them and their family, and protect themselves and their children. So I'm certainly not against divorce by any means if that's the right path for you, but it wasn't for us, and I'm grateful.
And it takes two. If only one is going to work on it, then that's not healthy either.
Right.
And so that's a really important part of it.
Mhm.
This idea of walking together and dancing together, it does something at a whole nother level, because it's regulating and it's rhythmic.
Yep.
And so it's getting you guys back in sync, because bonded pair couples regulate each other's biorhythms and all that stuff. And as you have those conversations, your mirror neurons in your brain start to create almost what we feel is like one brain. And so you can no longer hurt your partner without hurting yourself, watching yourself hurt your partner, or vice versa. And it's like, it's a sensitivity thing. And we live in a culture that really wants us to be desensitized. And when you go out and walk in nature, you're like, the car was too intense. We're moving too fast. We can't stop and look at each other, and we don't have enough of that natural environment around us that help us create this environment. You guys did a fabulous job with that. It's tough. It's really time.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was hard,
Yeah.
but it was worth it.
And I think, Heidi, something you said earlier was really key, and that was that you each had to take responsibility for what you brought into this, and you couldn't blame your partner, right? Because that's the easy way out. It's just, it's all their fault, and if they would change, then I would be happy. But turning that finger and pointing it towards yourself, that's the difficult part, and taking responsibility for what you have power and control over changing. And that's really where couples start to shift things.
Totally agree. Yeah. And you asked, how we knew that we were apart, how we knew that we'd kind of grown apart. And it was exactly that. It was kind of that selfish point where you're just kind of taking care of you, and he was gone and he was taking care of him, and I was taking care of me. And so there was no connection there. And that's when it's easy to just blame the other person and just be like, well, I'm out because you don't notice me anymore. So I'm gone. I've got this other person who's giving me attention. So I'm going to go do that now. It would have been really easy to do that, but
Mhm.
hard at the same time. It was a different kind of hard that would have been the consequence of that. And I wasn't willing to do that. So
Right.
Do you feel that for so long, maybe most of your lives or a lot of your relationship, that there was sort of always this kind of nagging pain that once you work through it is replaced with peace and like a profound connection, that you just feel so much safer in the world and that trust is there? And it's very hard earned, right? Because we get wounded through relationship long before we even meet our partner, right? And
Right.
all that comes up for healing. You guys know that feeling I'm talking about?
absolutely.
Right. And I would say that when you marry a human being, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do something stupid. They just are, because that's just what it means to be human, right? And so you can't ever expect perfection, but at the same time, you also have to be willing to offer each other grace. And excuse me, once you figure out how to do that, I think that's where that feeling comes, right? That you're talking about. That's where the trust starts to get built, and where you start to feel the peace, right? Is you're giving peace to that person, knowing that when you mess up, they're going to do the same to you and give you that grace and offer it freely to each other. I'm sure there are some situations where, you can't necessarily do that carte blanche, but for the most part, as fallible human beings, we're going to mess up, and we need to be able to offer that to each other without any strings attached. But here's the thing, is that even when you do that, something's going to happen again, right? They're going to do something dumb. We just do as human beings. We don't mean to. It's just what we do. And so you have to be willing to do that again and again and again over time, to offer that to each other. And
Yeah, a lot of times people want to know what they can get, not what they can give.
Mhm.
And it really is the offering, the giving, that we have full control over.
right.
That's
And
all
no
we
control over
have.
the getting.
It's
Yeah.
all we have full control
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
If we were to go full circle here a little bit, when we worked at Wendy's in college, when we were first married, I'm getting a little choked up about this, but we worked for the owner of the franchise, right? And as the owner of the franchise, he was probably in what, 40s or something, then
he was,
maybe.
yeah.
And we're so far away from home that he sort of became like a dad figure to us, so he was there when we met, when we got married,
We had our kids,
and had our first couple of children,
We kept working
right?
there.
And we worked there until we were finished with school. And when we moved away, sometimes we would drive back through that little town in southern Utah, and you can't not stop there, right? And so we'd stop and visit him and
He was
see him.
always there.
And yeah, he was always there. And our son actually grew up and went to that same little school and worked at that same little Wendy's for a while for that same owner, right?
Crazy.
And we would send Christmas cards and stuff like that. And just this last Christmas this year,
We got a beautiful Christmas card from the owner of that Wendy's.
he's in his late 70s.
Yeah.
He no longer owns that franchise anymore, but we got the sweetest letter from him about how proud he was of us. And he doesn't know
anything.
you really anything of what has gone on. I mean, he's a pretty wise person, so I'm sure he knows that life's not been perfect. But just to read that letter,
Of him just saying how proud he was of us.
Yeah, about what a joy it was for him to see us
To watch us grow up.
become parents and grandparents, and and this is somebody who's not related to us, right? He doesn't have to say this, right? It's not my mom or my dad or her mom or her dad and stuff. It was pretty special for us to have a little second of reflection of, yeah, we
did
have
it.
done this. We have done this together, and it's been hard,
did
but obviously, people see it.
I'm sure you never earned a paycheck that brought you to tears.
Yeah, no,
Because
that's
it's really
true.
our
No, that's
relationships
true.
that really
Right,
matter. in the
absolutely,
end.
absolutely.
That's right. It's the relationships that matter. That's all that we
So
have.
last question. What
Okay.
is it that your partner does that you know they love you?
So I guess there's a couple of things. What Heidi does for me that lets me know that she loves me is I get to work from my house now, as a lot of people do. So I don't have to drive to an office, at least for now. And that's great. And she'll come in while I'm working and just give me a kiss and just say, I love you, right? For no reason, just in the middle of the day, just come in and do that. Or something similar, just random out of the blue, send me a text that if we're not together or near each other, that lets me know that she loves me.
Thinking about him.
Yep.
He always has my hand. He's holding my hand right now. He just always has to hold my hand or have his hand on my leg all the time. It's so cute. No matter what we're doing, he always has to be touching me. It's so sweet. So I love that. I know it's a good day when he's got his hand in my hand.
Right.
And that he's in a good place and that he feels loved. So that's all that matters to me.
Chris and Heidi, you guys have a wonderful story. We want to thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And Heidi has a podcast as well. Heidi, do you want to promote that
Yeah.
podcast?
Well, and that's how I was fortunate to meet you guys. It's called Heidi's Lemonade Stand. And I talk to people who have taken a challenge and made their life or the world better because of something hard that they went through. And so it was my pleasure to interview you and find out your story as well, and why you're doing what you're doing and how you're helping thousands of people and couples fall in love again and encourage them in their marriages. And so I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. And I highly recommend people talk to you or get a life coach or get a therapist, whatever they need. Listen to your podcast. It's so uplifting and encouraging for whatever they might be going through in their marriages as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
People have been sharing stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
Thanks.
We want to wholeheartedly thank you for joining us today and for listening to Couples Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships. And this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplessynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as the Home Study Course, Relationship 101, the Couples Weekend Intensive, and our premier coaching program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplessynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.